The feeding of the 5,000, a miracle of compassion and provision. The setting anticipation of a miracle. It was a season of growing hope and fervor in Galilee. Word about Jesus of Nazareth, the carpenter turned teacher, had spread like wildfire. People whispered of his wisdom, his healings, and the miraculous signs he performed. They called him a prophet, even the Messiah. The air was thick with anticipation, as crowds from villages, farms, and fishing towns gathered wherever Jesus went. This particular day began like many others. Jesus and his disciples were traveling across the Sea of Galilee. After days of ministering to crowds, healing the sick, and teaching about the kingdom of God, they sought a moment of rest. The boat skimmed across the water, the disciples weary but content. Jesus, though visibly tired, carried a serene authority that drew people to him. On the shore, thousands had gathered, their eyes scanning the horizon. They had seen Jesus heal the blind, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. Many were desperate for healing or answers to life's burdens. Others were simply curious. As the boat approached, the crowds swelled, their excitement rising. Jesus' compassion. As Jesus stepped ashore and saw the vast crowd, he was moved with compassion. They were like sheep without a shepherd, lost, hungry for hope and yearning for meaning. Despite his fatigue, Jesus began teaching. Words of life flowed from him, captivating the crowd. He spoke of God's love, the coming kingdom, and the true path to peace. People leaned in, hanging on every word. Hour after hour passed, and the sun climbed high into the sky. Yet no one moved. The crowd seemed oblivious to their hunger, mesmerized by Jesus' teaching. The disciples, however, grew anxious. They knew the practical challenges of feeding such a massive crowd. A dilemma emerges. Finally, as the day drew to a close, the disciples approached Jesus. It was Philip, ever the pragmatist, who voiced their concern. "Teacher," he said, "it's late, and this is a remote place. Send the people away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus looked at Philip with a twinkle in his eye, testing him. "You give them something to eat," he replied. Philip's face fell. "Master," he said, "it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each person to have even a bite." Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, interjected. "There's a boy here," he said, gesturing toward a young lad clutching a basket. "He has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" The offer of the boy. The boy looked at Andrew, then at Jesus. He stepped forward, holding out his basket with trembling hands. His mother had packed the food for him that morning before he joined the crowd. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Jesus knelt down, meeting the boy's eyes. "Thank you," he said with a smile that lit up the boy's face. "Your gift will feed them all." The disciples exchanged puzzled looks. 5 loaves and 2 fish for over 5,000 men, plus women and children. It seemed impossible. The miracle unfolds. Jesus instructed the disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the grassy hillside. The crowd settled, the hum of anticipation spreading through them like ripples in a pond. Taking the loaves and fish, Jesus looked up to heaven and gave thanks. Then he began breaking the bread and fish into pieces. As he handed them to the disciples to distribute, something extraordinary happened. No matter how much was given away, the supply never diminished. Basket after basket was filled and passed among the people. The disciples moved through the seated crowd, marveling at the abundance. Bread and fish appeared to multiply in their hands as they served. The people ate until they were full, a miraculous banquet under the open sky. Overflowing abundance. When everyone had eaten their fill, Jesus said, "Gather the leftovers, so nothing is wasted." The disciples obeyed, and to their astonishment, They collected 12 baskets full of fragments, more food than they had started with. The crowd was awestruck. They had witnessed a miracle, one that spoke of God's limitless provision and love. They began to murmur among themselves, saying, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Lessons from the miracle. God's compassion. The miracle reveals Jesus' deep care for both the physical and spiritual needs of his people. He sees our hunger and provides for us abundantly. Faith in small offerings. The boys' simple offering of 5 loaves and 2 fish demonstrates that no gift is too small when placed in God's hands. God's abundance. The 12 baskets of leftovers remind us that God's blessings are not only sufficient but overflowing. A call to trust. Just as the disciples trusted Jesus to use the boys' offering, we are called to trust him with our resources and challenges. Aftermath, a revelation of identity. The miracle of the loaves and fish left the crowd yearning for more, both physically and spiritually. They wanted to make Jesus their king, hoping he would continue to provide for them. But Jesus withdrew to a mountainside alone, knowing their intentions. He had come not just to meet physical needs, but to offer himself as the bread of life, the ultimate provision for humanity's deepest hunger. This story is more than a miracle. It is a glimpse into the heart of God, who provides for his people in ways far beyond what we can imagine. The feeding of the 5,000 is a testament to his boundless love and a call to trust him with all we have and all we are.